Hey guys, welcome back to Cooking with Tammy Live. I'm Tammy and today we are going to be making oxtails, but not just any oxtails. We're going to be making delicious, smothered, falling off the bone, tender and juicy oxtails, guys. When I say they're going to be melt in your mouth, absolutely delicious, it is going to be perfect. If there's one thing that I hate, guys, is oxtails, or for instance, when you go to like some restaurants or even maybe some cookouts and different things, and you're eating like maybe ribs or oxtails, depending on whatever meat it is, and you end up fighting with it so much because the meat is not tender enough to come off the bone. Instead, most of the meat ends up in your teeth. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, guys, without further ado, let's make our delicious smothered, tender, juicy, falling off the bone oxtails, and let's introduce these ingredients and get started. First up on our ingredient list is our oxtails. Our oxtails has been washed and cleaned and ready to go. And for the seasonings, we are going to be using bay leaves, Worcestershire sauce, as well as paprika, red crushed chili flakes, minced garlic, all-purpose flour, and of course, I know you guys see those sliced onions in the back. We also have some red diced bell peppers, red and green, not to mention Mr. Potato. We have our bouillon powder, both chicken and beef bouillon powder, as well as water ×2. And we have some salt, as well as ground black pepper. Well, it's not grounded yet until we ground it up. And we have our oil. And of course, we have our Merlot. Yes, we are going to be using red wine for this recipe. And we have some all-purpose flour in the back. Anyway, guys, let's get to cooking. Now, as I mentioned, our oxtails are already washed, and what I did was I seasoned them with salt overnight. Look at this chunk of meat right here. This thing is big, right? Yep. But however, just for demonstration purposes, I didn't cut the fat off of it. So we're gonna do that right now as we speak. And what I did was I seasoned it with salt and ground black pepper, and I wrapped the bowl in Reynolds wrap, or should I say saran wrap, and I placed it in the fridge and allowed it to marinate so that way everything is going to be nice and saucy. Going in for the second piece right here. You see that fat right here? I'm going to cut it off. And we don't need to keep all the fat on the oxtails because guess what? We're dealing with beef and it's going to render its own oil, or should I say it's going to render its own fat. So we don't need a ton of fat on it. And also we don't, when we fry these oxtails up, because of course we are going to be browning our oxtails, as I don't know if you realize, but I haven't mentioned any browning sauce. That's because we are going to brown our oxtails, and I'm going to show you how to do that perfectly. All right, we are down to the last piece, and if you look right here, I know you guys noticed that this is a lot of fat. My goodness, right? Some fatty oxtails. But yeah, most important, get rid of it, toss it away, discard it, because you don't want this in your system. Like literally, this is too much fat. All right? All right. And because your girl is working on not being so messy, I have some all-purpose flour right here, ready to go in my Ziploc bag. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add these oxtail pieces to the flour. Quick and easy in my opinion. About 4 pieces. Toss it around just a little bit. Make sure you coat it really well. Top and bottom. Shake it around, shake it around. All right, let's see what we got. Shake it off. And we're gonna place it right here. Shake it off. Right there. And let me tell you something, no matter how you try to be non-messy when it comes to working with flour, it's almost impossible. Any type of powdery substance, you are gonna get some type of dust fly away somewhere. Some type of powder fly away somewhere. I'm gonna add the remaining amount. And the reason why I set the oxtails here is because right now it looks perfectly floured, right? But sometimes, after you finish washing the oxtails, and even though you pat them dry, because it is important that you pat it dry, only simply because you want to be able to sear these oxtails nice and brown. You want to give them the perfect tan, all right? No doubt about it, perfect tan. So sometimes when you allow it to sit for a minute, even though you pat it dry, there's still water sometimes retained within the oxtail. So as it's sitting here, sometimes the flour would literally, it would seem like it's like a magical act. The flour would disappear And you'd be like, wait a minute, I thought I just floured, you know, whatever. And by the time you get to the end of the batch, you can't see the flour. If that happens to you, take it, put it back in the bag and reflour it, because you want the flour to stick on the oxtail. So like I said, that way you would have the perfect sear. See what I mean, guys? I allowed it to sit for about 3 minutes. And look, the flour literally, it's almost like we didn't flour the oxtail, right? So with that being said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it and put it right back in the flour, because this little guy is not gonna mess up my browning process. Not today. All right, that's perfect. That should be perfect. A second coating is usually all it needs. All right, we have our Dutch pot right here, ready to go, nice and hot. Remember what I said in regards to the oil and beef rendering its own oil. So I'm just gonna add that small amount right there. We are gonna go in with our first piece of meat, because the browning process is stage number 2. Just like that. And of course, we're not gonna overcrowd the pot. We are gonna give it ample space and allow it to do its thing, because we want everything to sear up perfectly. I'm gonna end up doing 2 batches, only because I have some meat left over and we're not gonna overcrowd this pot. Just in case you were wondering what the water is for, well, we are gonna make our own beef stock. So I am gonna go in with my tablespoon right here, get some of that delicious beef bouillon powder. I was about to say beef broth. It's not beef broth just yet. I'm gonna take about 2 tablespoons because I want it to be flavorful. And to this measuring cup right here, we are gonna take some chicken bouillon powder and add it as well. We are gonna go in, gonna stir it, make sure everything is well combined, make sure there's nothing stuck at the bottom. Now here's the thing, you can go out and you can always buy chicken stock or beef broth. Me, I tell you right now, I prefer to have these on hand. Make your own broth. Make your own chicken broth and your own beef broth, only simply because when you use the bouillon powder to make your broth, when I say it elevates the flavors. It gives you so much flavor, especially when making meat. In my honest opinion, the broth, it's a little bit, yeah, it's broth, but it's not as flavorful. So you find yourself having to add a ton of different seasonings to the broth. Even if you're making soup, you have to add a ton of seasonings, whether it's garlic powder, onion powder, this, that, you know, just to basically make it tasty. Versus using the bouillon powder, because I realized when you use the bouillon powder, from the very start, your broth has flavor, and that's important. So yes, we have the beef and we have the chicken. Why are you using chicken? Because I know somebody's gonna ask, because it's gonna help to elevate the flavors even though we are making beef. Let's see how these oxtails are browning up. That is perfect. A1 perfect. Cover it back down. Let it do the do. Look at our oxtails, guys. As you can see, they are browned perfectly. Anyway, moving right along. Now, to this pot right here, this hot Dutch pot, what I am gonna do is, guys, see all of those brown bits at the bottom? That's perfect. What we're gonna do is we're gonna add our onions, and we are gonna saute these onions. Now, the brown bits at the bottom not only helps with the color of the oxtails during the last process, or should I say during the last part of the cooking process, but also it's gonna provide a lot of flavor, because all of the flavor is locked in those brown bits. Also, we are gonna go in, we're also gonna add our bell peppers. Isn't this pretty? Give it a good mix. Allow these peppers and onions to cook down for about a minute or so, just to have them not only soften up just a bit, but have them release their flavors. And for those of you who may not be a big fan of veggies, let me be honest with you. The only thing these veggies are going to do is bring complementary flavor and also help to thicken up our sauce. During the last part of the cooking process, you're not even going to see these bell peppers or onions. Trust me. Anyway, we're going to add our minced garlic. Get that garlic in there as well. Mix it on up. I love making smothered oxtails using this method because it's much quicker, definitely quicker. Because usually when you cook it on the stovetop, oxtails take anywhere from 3.5 to 4 hours, especially if you want it literally falling off the bone. So, for those of you who may not have a Dutch oven, no problem. You can use an oven-safe pot, as well as lid. Make sure everything is oven-safe, and place it into the oven. Now, I know the Dutch pot, from experience, it holds a ton of heat. So the cooking process using this is usually much quicker. To this mix, we're gonna add some paprika. Give it that nice color. Toss it around just a little bit. Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this lovely? Yes, it is. All right. We are gonna go in with some all-purpose flour. Why are we adding flour? Because this is gonna help to thicken up our sauce. Yes. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cook the flour out so that way it doesn't have a floury taste. Just like that. And as you can see, the flour is sticking to the bottom. Perfect. But once you add that liquid, it is gonna lift itself from the bottom of the pot. So no worries whatsoever. Look at this little melody right here. What? All right, we're gonna go in and we are gonna add our Merlot. And the Merlot is gonna deglaze the bottom of the pan, or in this case, the bottom of the Dutch oven. Make sure we get every drip drop, every little bit that was left. Woo, it smells so good. Lord. And we are gonna go in and add our beef broth. And of course, no particular order whatsoever. It's just basically what I grabbed. And we're gonna add our chicken broth as well. Give it a good mix, make sure everything is well combined. Just like that. This is gonna be amazing. And we are gonna add our crushed chili flakes, as well as our bay leaves, and our Worcestershire sauce. Yes, because we want everything to have great flavor. And most importantly, it's time for us to add our oxtails, our perfectly browned oxtails. Of course, the oxtails weren't cooked yet. You thought because you fried it up it was cooked? No. All that did was brown it. Brown it nicely for stage 2. Close it on up and off to oven land we go. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place this Dutch oven into a 400-degree Fahrenheit oven. Fahrenheit oven, and allow it to cook until it's nice and tender. And as you can see, the only ingredients we have left on this cutting board is the potatoes. Yes. The potatoes are not going to go in just yet. They're going to go in during the last 20 minutes of the cooking process. But for now, into the oven, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't want to see anybody in the comment section. How many degrees did you say? 400. And what we're going to do is we're going to check on it periodically. I'm going to allow it to go for maybe about 45 minutes to an hour first. And then I'm going to check to see whether or not if it needs more liquid. More liquid meaning you can add either water or you can add more broth. Whether it be store-bought broth or the broth that we made. For instance, the chicken as well as the beef broth that we made, we can make some more and add it accordingly. That's just basically it. Anyway, guys, so like I said, I'm going to allow it to go for an hour. If I need to add more liquids at that point in time, obviously if the meat isn't tender enough, we're going to do that. And that's about it, guys. I'll keep you updated. Our oxtails are done, guys. Yes, look at how thick and rich this sauce is. You can't tell me this sauce is not everything. Not to mention, we didn't add any type of browning sauce whatsoever, right? And look, we have the perfect brown color. Our meat is tender and falling off of the bone. What? And this oxtail, I wish you guys could taste it. I swear, it's literally falling off of the bones. Like literally falling off of the bone. You see that? So easy to pull apart. No fighting involved, none of that stuff. And it only took me about 2 hours to get to this point, guys. About 2 hours, no lie. 400 degrees Fahrenheit in that oven. And I placed the potatoes into the pot during the last 20 minutes of cooking. And how do you know when to put the potatoes into the pot? Of course, when the meat is tender enough to know that, okay, about another 20 minutes and we should be good to go. Honestly, because potatoes take about 20 minutes roughly to cook. And yeah, once the meat is tender, that's your indication right there. Tender, but not falling off the bone all the way just yet. And yes, everything turned out perfect. Let me just demonstrate. Let me just show you. You see this? You see this, guys? Yes. Absolutely tender, juicy, and flavorful. You got that nice, rich, thick sauce. Everything, as I mentioned in the intro, is what these oxtails are. Now, here's the thing. I decided to pair it with Rasta pasta, guys, a nice, creamy, decadent pasta. But of course, it just has a slight hint of spice for that extra kick, as well as some additional seasonings. And look at how beautiful. This right here, perfect meal. Perfect. When I say perfect meal, it doesn't get any better than this. Absolutely delicious. Look at these delicious, creamy pasta shells, guys. Not to mention our tender, juicy, falling off the bone oxtails. What? Anyway, guys, you guys better make this recipe. Hit me up in the comment section and tell me what you think. Of course, all cooking details, description bar below. Link to the Rasta pasta would also be in the description bar below as well. And I will catch you guys in another video. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button. Definitely let everybody know that Cooking with Tammy is doing her thing. And I will catch you guys later in another video. Bye, guys.